Is that a maypole in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Happy Beltane. Beltane and May Day is usually observed on May 1st. In the Wiccan tradition, they celebrate the sexual union of the goddess and the god, an allegory of Mother Earth impregnated by the seed of the green man. So, it wasn't my intention, but I realized this morning that the last few episodes of this You Are the Spell podcast have been focused on the witch's wheel of the year. Honestly, it wasn't a plan because goodness knows that I have written other articles and podcast scripts, and I mean a lot, that have yet to be recorded, and I'm still working on the You Are the Spell book. Anyway, but whenever I realize that there's like a sacred day, a high holy day coming up, I find myself rushing to get the podcast out. And so here I am today. And my magical background is Hoodoo, not Wicca. But I have come to appreciate the Witch's Wheel of the Year that is celebrated by my Wiccan and other pagan friends. The Witch's Wheel of the Year honors and celebrates the cycles and seasons that we experience on our planet, as well as in our communities, in our homes, and also within our bodies. So we begin these celebrations by noticing the energy around us. Witchcraft is, in large part, the practice of listening to the quality of the energy in our communities. Think about it. Ask yourself, what is going on in the natural world right now? What colors do you see? What plants? What flowers? What are those things that are growing right now? And what do you hear? Ask yourself, what do you feel inspired to celebrate? And what are you grateful for? As hoodoo practitioners, also known as root workers, work with roots, herbs, flowers, and plants, it makes sense that we would be conscious of nature cycles. Modern day root workers might use dried herbs from the grocery store, but once upon a time, our ancestors grew their own herbs and also foraged them from the earth. Since I moved to Westchester County, New York from New York City, I now have a lot more access to fresh herbs and I like to use them as much as possible. And 2 years ago, I started my very first garden and I have enjoyed learning how to grow my own herbs. So, Beltane also begins the season of planting. So, let's get into it. If you'd like to start your own witchy garden, be sure to get my free e guide, A Beginner's Guide to Witchy Gardening. Just sign up in the link in the description below. So, what's Beltane? Beltane is the Gaelic May Day festival, and it's traditionally held on May 1st or about midway between the spring equinox and summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. In Irish mythology, Beltane marked the beginning of summer, and it was when cattle were driven out to the summer pastures. Beltane in Celtic means lucky fire. So there were rituals that were performed to protect the cattle, people, and crops, and to encourage growth. Special bonfires were kindled, and their flames, smoke, and ashes were deemed to have protective powers. The people and their cattle would walk around or between the bonfires, and sometimes they'd even leap over the flames or embers. All household fires would be doused, and then they'd be relit from the Beltane bonfire. Now, these gatherings would be accompanied by a feast, and some of the food and drink would be given as offerings. Beltane and May Day would also usually have a maypole. Originally, the maypole was a living tree. It was chosen from the woods with much merrymaking. And ancient Celts, they would dance around the tree and they'd pray for the fertility of their crops and all living things. But later on, the maypole was a pole, a phallic symbol, which was often made from a birch tree. It would be inserted into the earth and it represented the potency of the god. And there would be a ring of flowers at the top of the maypole, and that represented the fertile goddess. And it had many colored ribbons, and there would be this ensuing weaving dance, which symbolized the spiral of life and the union of the goddess and god, and the union between earth and sky. Now, I remember having a maypole in elementary school. Did you have that too? Like I don't know if we dressed up in any particular color, but I remember they'd have this big old pole and then they'd have these ribbons and like the kids would hold the ribbon and we'd weave ourselves in and out until we got to the center. And that's something we used to do, but it's pagan. Anyway, the colors of Beltane are green, red, and white slash silver. The green represents growth, abundance, and fertility, while red represents strength, vitality, passion, and vibrancy. White or silver, that represented cleansing and the clearing. White slash silver represents cleansing and clearing and the power to disperse negativity. So, fire isn't the only element that is especially potent at Beltane. The morning dew on May 1st is said to be infused with the power to preserve youth, clarify skin, and enhance beauty and sexual attractiveness. So, druids would collect dew in hollowed out stones prior to sunrise on May Day morning, and young women would roll in the dew or anoint their faces with it. You know something really funny? I actually looked outside today and it was early enough that the dandelions that had been up were kind of closed. If I had thought about it, I could have like rolled around and frolicked in that May Day dew this morning. But no, it's fine. I'd rather I'd rather sleep in. Anyway, so another thing, we're talking about water. We're talking about that fire wasn't the only potent element. It was water. So it was the water that showed up in the dew, in the morning dew of May Day. And holy wells were also visited and adorned with offerings. And by the way, Beltane is a high holy day in the witch world. And if you live in the Southern Hemisphere, shout out to Hannah, the suburban witch at the Witch Talks podcast. She lives in Australia where they are celebrating Samhain today, i.e., Halloween. Now, both holidays are said to have a thinner veil between the living and the dead. And while ancestors get a lot of attention at Samhain, Halloween, for Beltane, the fairies are said to abound. Now, personally, I do not mess with fairies. Like, I don't know anything about them. I'm not even trying to get with them because I kind of feel like I'll probably forget and then they might want to take it out on me. I don't know. For whatever reason, I don't mess with fairies. But if you do, be sure to leave some sugar in nature for them. Beltane customs are also reminiscent of the ancient Roman festival Floralia, which honors Flora, the goddess of flowers, vegetation, and fertility. There we go with that fertility. This is a holiday that demands that we go absolutely overboard with flowers. Flower garlands, flower crowns, flowers on the altar, flowers everywhere. So doors, windows, and even livestock during those ancient times would be decorated with yellow mayflower flowers, probably or possibly because they evoked the color of, well, fire. And in parts of Ireland, people would make a may bush, which was typically a thorn bush or a branch that would be decorated with flowers and ribbons and bright shells. I got your may bush right here. So I mentioned earlier that the Wiccan tradition of Beltane celebrates the sexual union of the goddess and the god, which is an allegory of Mother Earth who is impregnated by the seed of the green man. So Beltane celebrations are often infused with a boisterous and bawdy energy that reflects the fertile energy of the season. So we mentioned the maypole having or being a phallic symbol of it's a symbol of masculine energy, and it's joyfully embraced by colorful ribbons symbolic of the beautiful abundance and diversity of our living world. So basically, Beltane is the season of planting, fertility, and sexuality when we celebrate the sexual energy and the fertility in plant, animal, and human world. So speaking of sex, there is the great rite, RITE. which is the most important and sacred part of Beltane, which is the physical joining of male and female. In the past, apparently, there was a sexual act performed in the middle of the holy circle. And even though some people still have this practice, the more common one is a little more symbolical. There is a dagger that is put inside a chalice, where the dagger represents the male principle and the chalice represents the female principle. And since this holiday celebrates sex, it is recommended, of course, that you have sex in the woods so that the woods are filled with people enjoying their time. Now, if you are not a fan of the outdoors, your bed is just fine too. Now, I'd like to acknowledge right here that sexuality and gender are a spectrum. The divine feminine is, generally speaking, any energy expressed by any gender that is intuitive, receptive, heart centered, and sensual. And the divine masculine is, generally speaking, any energy expressed by any gender that is structured, active, head centered, and provides a strong foundation. Both and all energies are powerful, and everyone is encouraged to partake in the joys of Beltane. All of them. And by that same token, you don't even need to be coupled up. You don't have to be booed up to celebrate and enjoy Beltane. If you have a lover to enjoy this day with, fantastic. But Beltane can definitely be enjoyed alone. Sometimes we just need to honor our own bodies and sexuality. As Beltane is the great wedding of the goddess and the god, it is a popular time of year for pagan weddings or hand fastings, which are a traditional betrothal for a year and a day, after which the couple would either choose to stay together or part without recrimination. And today, the length of commitment is a matter of choice for the couple and can often be for life. Hand fasting ceremonies are often unique to the couple, but include common elements, most importantly, the exchange of vows and rings, or a token of their choice. The act of hand fasting always involves tying the hands, as in tying the knot of the two people involved. And they were tied, their hands were tied in a figure of eight and at some point of the ceremony. And then later it would be unbound. The figure eight, the whole hand fasting, it would be unbound. And this whole binding is done with a red cord or ribbon. Tying the hands together, it symbolizes that the two people have come together, and the untying means that they remain together of their own free will. There's something very beautiful about that, don't you think? It's like it's the idea that, okay, once we are released from these red cords, if we are here because we choose to be here. We are not here because of some law. We're here because we want to be. And I think that's something very beautiful. So another tradition that happened at Beltane was a maying, and you didn't have to be hand fasted for this. Like, so it said hand fasting or hand fasted or not, both young and old went a maying. So that means couples spent the night in the woods and fields. They made love and brought back armfuls of the first May or hawthorn blossoms to decorate their homes and barns. Hawthorn, this plant, was never brought into the home except at Beltane. At other times, it was considered unlucky. Young women, they gathered the dew to wash their faces. They made flower crowns and May baskets to give as gifts. Everyone was free to enact the sacred marriage of goddess and god. And of course, there was an accepted tradition of Beltane babies arriving 9 months later. If you're looking for some ideas on how to celebrate Beltane, I have a few. So if you know someone who happens to have a maypole, maybe there's someone with a party, I say go find one. Go find a maypole and learn how to weave the ribbons with the dance. Now, Beltane also happens during Taurus season, and Taurus season is, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and it's about beauty and relaxation. So another thing that you could do is have a spa day. Beltane is a perfect time to revel in the pleasure of beauty rituals. Get pampered, get your nails done, just relax and just enjoy your beauty, or wear something really that makes you feel good and sexy and attractive. And of course, do it for you or do it for others, whatever. You might be going a Maying later, who knows? Another thing that you can do is plant seeds, be in the garden. Now, I'm in New York, so it's still kind of cold. So some of the plants that I would like to have, I'm going to wait till later this month because it's still a little chilly, but it's definitely a great time to at least maybe start picking up some plants and getting ready, or getting your garden ready. I do have a witchy guide for beginners, witchy garden guide, something like that. You can find it in the link in the bio. But this is a great day to be in the garden and plant seeds if that works in your area. Another thing you can do for Beltane is to make art. Exercise your creativity. Get your crayons, your paints. This is all, this is very Venus energy. Energy with love and creativity and coloring and painting, and just express yourself with your art. And you don't have to be a quote unquote artist. It's just about having fun and expressing yourself. And if you do have flowers around, make flower crowns. Put the flowers in your hair. I love seeing flowers in hair. I'm red soul flower, so I have my little red flower. But on Beltane, I tend to go a little extra and get other flowers and put them in my hair. And you'll see me with like several flowers because it's Beltane, and why not? So look for some flowers and surround yourself with flowers. Put them in your hair or just enjoy them. Go somewhere where you can smell them and just tap into the beauty and the wonder of this season. So this morning is May 1st, and at breakfast with my husband, we were talking about what we had planned for the day. So he mentioned that, today's May 1st, so he's going to pay the rent. And I mentioned that I was going to do a podcast for Beltane, the fertility festival. And would you believe my atheist muggle husband quickly popped in with, "Oh, yes, we need to celebrate that today." And of course, that made me laugh. But of course, I agreed because, I can't just talk about it. I got to be about it. So forgive me if this podcast seems short. I got to go a maying with my man. If you'd like to start your own witchy garden, be sure to get my free e-guide, A Beginner's Guide to Witchy Gardening. Just sign up in the link in the description below. I encourage you to enjoy this magical festival of Beltane because you are magic.